In the previous live coding session, I thought we'd hit something in SwiftUI that we couldn't test, and so we extracted it to a different place to make it testable and kind of threw up our hands and said, oh, well, we won't test that part of the view itself. But a someone who participates in the live chat submitted a pull request. So that is our solution, our way forward to add some testing to SwiftUI. This is what we do in this session. And we also take advantage of our existing tests around SwiftUI views to do some pretty cool refactoring. Check it out. Hey. Hey, Mudchuck. Glad to have you. Garbob. Excellent. Let's get rolling. Hello, and welcome to the Quality Coding live stream. Live coding, live mistakes, lots of chit chat when folks join and start participating in the chat live on Twitch. So always fun to have that. For folks who can't join live, welcome to the recording after the fact. Do all the things to train your algorithms. You know, give me a follow or a subscribe or whatever it is on your system. My name is John Reed. I am the author of that. You can find me here. And let's see what's going on since we have been, well, we were off last week for Easter. By the way, heads up, I will be off again for 2 weeks. So this we'll be back on May 18th. I'll repeat that at the end, of course. What is going on? Let's do a quick review of stuff we did last time. And this is partly to, partly to prompt any memories of things, but also to show folks, if you want to see any of this, and yeah, these are rambling, live, unscripted coding sessions, so you kind of have to poke around to find this stuff. But if you want to find this stuff, this is what we did last time. We did manual refactoring, where we used a technique called lean on the compiler, but still trying to do small refactoring. And that's manual because that's what we have to do most of the time since we work in Xcode. Used an extension to avoid coupling. Oh yeah. This was a thing about how do we have a type that we want to have be sort of pure from a domain perspective, but it also needs to interact with the presentation layer. And an extension is a nice way to do that. We talked a little about characterization testing. I don't remember what exactly, but that is how to add tests of existing code. The existing code will tell you what the assertions are. We did a guard clause that was not a guard clause. It's just sometimes, because a guard clause in Swift, the logic is backwards from an if statement. A guard clause works great, but sometimes I like to flip it back to an if, because it reads better from a perspective of like, what are we actually doing here instead of what are we not doing? We talked about Arlo's naming is a process, and specifically that it's okay to push a nonsense name. You can always improve it later. Isn't that one of the key things about my style of coding? Is and I say mine, but I mean XPers, is that we work in an iterative and evolutionary manner. We don't have to have it all locked down. Especially, we don't have to have a nice, tidy pull request where everything is perfect and it's so big and it's been in review forever because all these people have different comments, and because it's big, it takes long to review, which takes long for it to get merged, which makes you want to make big PRs because you say to yourself, it takes a long time, so I should put as much in as I can. And the system gets worse. In contrast to that, we can just push. Make things a little bit better, knowing that in the next go-round, you will continue to make things a little bit better. That's the XP way. What are we actually working on? We are, and welcome other folks who have joined. Do say hello. We are working on the Mastermind guessing game, specifically to give feedback when you press the check guess button. We want to show feedback about the guess as colored pegs, and we were working on distinguishing empty pegs from pegs with feedback, and had a little trouble. Now here's the thing. Had a little trouble writing a test for it. Decided it was untestable, so that's when we did the manual extraction so that we could move the logic that we needed somewhere else so that then we could bring it under test in a nice way. But an unusual thing has happened. I have a pull request. Let's take a look. Here we have let's make that, hopefully that's visible to folks. I know some folks watch on small devices. So we've got Mohammed Bashtani in Tehran. Thank you for this. We have I added tests using the method I found to test the stroke color in View Inspector, which was the thing we were struggling with, and decided, But Mohammed found a way. Let's see what he has. First, nice change there to use make SUT. But I doubt that Copilot would do anything useful when we're doing stuff like this. But let's see what we have here. Peg shape. So these are the extensions on the inspectable views. That is the pattern we found that seems to work really well. And yes, blog posts are coming to express this in tidy fashion, but they're mostly videos from this point on. So it's taking me some time, and I want to batch them up a little bit before I start releasing some of the early ones, which aren't really about TDD. They're about some of the project configuration stuff we had to do. So peg shape, I'm not sure if peg shape is used. I don't think it is. I think that's probably dead code maybe Mohammed was exploring. But peg stroke color, here we go. Oh, no. I see. Peg shape. There, that's where he's calling it. Find. Oh. He did because this is the original code to find the peg color, he did an extract method on this. Shape foreground color. And so this is the shape overlay shape fill shape style. Let's find out what this is. Now, Mohammed, I suppose I could just bring this in, but I kind of want to do it myself. That is, I want to feel it coming out of my fingers. So I'm going to keep this as reference with great thanks to you. Let's find out how to do this and reflect this in the Miro. So actually, we're kind of back to testing the overlay. Let me fix this up. So we want to test at the view level, and this will now come into play, which means this comes into play. Follow the orange to know what's being worked on at any time. I do not love Jira, but one of the things you can do in a discovery tree is just add, if you have Jira tickets, you can just add a ticket. Like say if we had a ticket for distinguish empty feedback, then you just add the link like right there. And that way, I do this at work, even though I'm the only one using my discovery tree. It makes it quick and easy for me to go, okay, what's the lay of the land here that I get with a discovery tree that I don't get from Jira or from Confluence pages, but I can just click on it and say, okay, I need to add a comment to the ticket or change its status. All right, so let's test this at the view level and let's follow along with what Mohammed has done. This is, there we go. All right, so he, does that more or less match? Yeah. The size, I'm thinking. The shape, foreground color. That's why it's peg shape. All right. Let's see if we can't do that much. And let's see if we can do it. No. Doggone it. How about if without the try? There we go. Hey, 2Dino. Welcome, welcome. So I'm going to call this, use the same name, except making it private. Like that. That way it is clear. We did look for it, but it wasn't evident. We looked in View Inspector. Right? And because it didn't do, it's handy that it was able to do that extract method, but it doesn't really work, does it? Not unless we say, hey, that can throw. And please try that. There. So it takes some extra steps to get there. I'm going to move this down so that it's in newspaper order. It's funny, newspaper order no longer makes sense. We don't read newspapers and articles. When you go to an article, the idea behind newspaper order was that the important stuff is at the top, and then you keep reading and it gives more details. And if you want more details, you keep reading, but you can stop reading at any point. You don't want to bury the lead. You get the headline in place and some the important information in the first paragraph. Nowadays, I feel like it's mainly about we want to tease you because we need the ad revenue. So we're going to actually put the important information at the bottom after telling you we're going to tell you about it. We need a different metaphor than newspaper order, maybe. So this looks like a fine extract. Let me make sure. Let's turn on TCR. Let's be bold and have it fail, have it revert on failure as well. There we go. Okay, now something else that's happened out in the world is an update to Arlo's notation. I'm going to move you out of the way. Arlo's notation has changed. I was using a beta version, essentially, of V2, but it is now official and slightly different. Oops, that's not it. Here it is. Slightly different. The idea is still the same, that in the V2 version of Arlo's commit notation, we start with the risk indicator and then have a letter for the intention indicator. Dot is still low. What I need to get used to, and this is my first time doing it, is there have been some changes, probably because a lot of people used it and found out how it works with different tools or just the experience, the ergonomics of using it. So caret or up, it's like, this is up from a period, and then exclamation, wow. And I think there's one more for like, it's broken. We know it's broken. Let's take a look. At, not star. And if you go to Arlo's, well, you can start from my thing. Hang on a second. Just give me a second as I say goodbye. My face is so big. So this is what you can use if you want to use Arlo's notation. It's my handy little git commit template. And inside of here, a link to Arlo's stuff where you can read in great detail about the different combinations of these things and how, like what would it mean, for example, to have a documentation change that's risky versus validated. Some of these things don't don't not all the combinations are as strong or make as much sense, but they went through and explored all of them, Arlo and company. So I wanted to pull that up because using my TCR script, I don't have the template here. I have to sort of figure it out. So this was, this was an automated refactoring, but not entirely automated. But the rest of it is provable. In the sense that it was to satisfy the compiler. So I'm going to call this a low-risk refactoring. Extract extract a thing to get the peg shape. Extract method peg shape. There. And with that, TCR will now have pushed that to the trunk. Yep, we are up to date with origin. So moving slowly, I know, but this is part of why I don't want to just take Mohammed's nice changes. I want to work through them myself. It's fun. Good question. So, was this not test only? Because that's another subtle thing I learned rereading Arlo's changes, was that T for tests, make this a little smaller. Where was it? He describes low-risk refactorings as, first, the T seems to be reserved for I wrote a test. But making a refactoring to test code, he uses R, but it's lower risk. So even if it were even if it wasn't automated and provable, and it is simply that, it ran through and the tests are still happy, it is no longer elevated. So there's subtleties. There are subtleties to this. So it's no longer an elevated risk, it's low risk because it didn't touch production code. All right. Let's keep going here. Okay, so let's find out what's going on with shape, fill shape style. Nothing in ours. I just wanted to see if we were using it anywhere. But let's have a look inside of shape. Shape style. And this is why it didn't pop out at me, is that this shape style in this example is a gradient. So let's find out what this is. Huh. The shape attribute. So it's like, give me some attribute about the shape, whatever it is. The fill shape style can be various things, it looks like. Yeah, it's not evident, which kind of makes me want to extend the test code a bit more. Instead of just shape style. I mean, yay, it serves as a test of View Inspector, but it doesn't serve as documentation for us. So that could be something to do, would be to add a pull request. And I've done this before with View Inspector to say, I want to give another example. Let me put that down just as a note. Add another example to View Inspector tests. That is something maybe take a look at doing another time. If we were mobbing, I think in person, I think we might do this together, but it's not how I want to spend this time, at least not at the moment. But that's what the node is for. So it doesn't pop, but thank you, Mohammed, for this test shape style. Fill shape style. I kind of want to see where else this is. So if we go to View Inspector and do a / to search and do search for fill shape style. Guide styles. So there is a, let's have a look at what this is. How do I easily see the guide? I mean, here it is, but oh, preview. What is this page? I don't know this page. Where is it linked to from the root? I don't know. It looks like there are a few more guides in here than I recall. The only ones I'm used to doing are the inspection guide and the check for what coverage of what functionality is or is not provided in View Inspector. So, look at this. We got a few more things. So what do I want to call this? As extra let's take a look. We've got, let's see what this one is. Okay, this one's very familiar. Gestures. So there is a whole page on testing gestures. Pop-ups. I've seen this one. I think we did the maybe a little of this together when we were first doing our alert, not alert, a sheet, but yeah. Okay, so pop-ups, styles, that's the one in question, and a watchOS one. Interesting. So this is our friend here. Custom button styles. Button styles are not something I'm familiar with. I just Hey, MJB in the house. I'm looking at it right now. MJB, thank you so much for this. No, so we're going through it right now. Instead of just taking it, I'm exploring it. So this is awesome, man. I don't know how you found this. So this is stuff on button styles. It's funny, I don't see much on shape in here, but there's fill shape style hiding in there. So yeah. Yeah. I like it. All right. So with that, we can take these lines. Now this I will just copy because it looks very clear. Peg color and so there's the peg color and there's the stroke. That's why we're getting the going from there to the overlay shape and getting its color. Man, so good. That should just fly in because nothing's using it, but let's see. Oh, this is a good test. How close is it to the one we did for feedback peg color? Rather different. That's interesting too. This is just checking what's the color for this status? What's the color for this status? Whereas out at this layer, it's much more around a higher level that we usually get when we write tests in View Inspector, which are closer to acceptance tests. Read a good thing that about how TDD, some good advice on TDD that really has been part of my sort of my most recent phase of learning TDD in the last maybe 5 years plus, is that the idea of working with the tiniest tests is not necessarily helpful to TDD because you can end up with things that lock down implementation, that it's nicer when possible, which is why we're doing this in View Inspector. It's nicer to test from the perspective of the user. We do a few things, do we get this outcome? So that's what this is. You know what? And you did, Mohammed, do a make SUT. Did I not have that before? Maybe I didn't need it before. Ah, I see. Test pegs. Okay, let's commit this change. Nothing's using it yet. So definitely low risk. What is it? I'm going to call it test code. um, I just wanted to get that in, moving in small steps. And then the other thing you did, Mohammed, was you extracted make SUT, and that seems to I like that. That's one of the things that we've learned together. I still want to do more of. It takes an array. When I see an array in test code, it makes me want to not use an array, but instead simplify it a little bit. So let's do something else. Private, make SUT. That's a good start, but that's not quite what I want. What I want is this. Take out the array and put in ... Func. Whoops. The difference that this will let us do is we can then say, I just want to kind of compare it to what you had here. Okay, so you kept the argument, which is fine, but that's what I'm changing right now. Instead of taking make SUT and sort of making it pretty transparent in terms of the arguments and so forth, I want to simplify it first by making it not take the argument. We're just going to provide the pegs. So first thing is we get rid of this. The other thing is we get rid of the array. Like that. And you spell make SUT correctly. This is now a list of pegs, peg status, which comes as just a straight comma separated thing. This is something I've learned, especially coding with some real great coaches. I just gave kudos to Paige Watson about learning to try to avoid primitives like arrays, especially arrays, as a form, you recognizing it as a form of primitive obsession. That primitives aren't just strings and ints. Basic types like arrays are also primitives. But something else I learned from working with that crew was this makes test code easier. Do we want it that way for the actual feedback view? No. It makes sense to do it this way. But in test code, it's just kind of nice to say make an SUT of the feedback view, because that's what we're in, with these things. Now I'm going to run this, and if this is good, this is a low risk test refactoring. So I'm going to, where in the past, I have done pretty much everything that's test only. I just marked with a test. This is a refactoring in Arlo's more full explanation. So this is extract make SUT. with, what do you call this? There's a word for these, obviously, but I don't know what it's called. Variadic. Thank you. Spread. Mudsharky, I think you're showing your JavaScript experience. Yeah, variadic spelled like that, I think. Let's take a quick look. Whoops. Variadic argument. Variadic arguments in Swift. Variadic parameters. And there you go. And you can look it up from there. So these are some nice things. Let me note that also. Variadic parameters help simplify test code. Cool. Now we can take that other one. Let's see if this is the pegs. It's actually like the peg colors as opposed to the peg stroke color. All right, now let's take this and slap it in. This is, I don't know, how did you find this, Mohammed? You dug around and did some great research when we took a look and couldn't find it. You found it. All right, let's do some sort of name iteration. Checked View Inspector codes, also opened a PR on View Inspector. You did? Awesome. Very good. Haha. you beat us to it. So you did that in a PR. Ah, that's great. Well done. Okay. Let's see. This is the color around pegs. For showing filled versus empty. About something like that. Color around the pegs showing filled versus empty. And we can see it's kind of nice having these side by side because they're using the same setup and going through, and you can see it's the peg color here. I'm going to rename this to peg color. Correct. Misplaced, misplaced, and unselected. And here it's correct. Misplaced, misplaced, and clear for the color around the peg. Let's rename these a little bit. Pick one color. Just so to make it clear that how these are two tests are different. I'm going to say stroke. How about that? Nice. How about that? That is great. Woo! I'm feeling really, really grateful about this. And yeah, it's a great discovery. Way to go. And for folks who are watching, especially watching after the fact, if you ever see something that you think like I missed, absolutely open up a pull request. I won't just pull it in like that. And it's a place for a conversation. But when I saw Mohammed's PR, I thought, I want to do that live. Like, it's good. And that's why I was silent. I should have said something. Sorry. I should have added a note saying, thank you. And I'll do this in the next stream. So, woo. Feeling good. This is a great and important question. So Mohammed asks, John, I have a fundamental question. For example, which approach is better? Testing a view by indirectly testing the view model through it, or testing the view with a mocked view model while testing the view model separately in isolation? And I don't know which is better. I'm working with, I do some personal private coaching, and the approach that my current student took for a game that he is writing is, or that we took together, was to do a view model centric approach. And then with that style, we ended up with a view model. It's still growing, but we have the model, which is tested, of how the game works. I kind of want to try that with Mastermind at some point. Yeah, good point, Mudshark. Like stick in an actual view model. Or the other thing you can do is, if the view is small enough because you've really followed the humble object approach of saying everything about the view I'm going to represent in the view model. Actually have a view model. One of the problems with MVVM, as I see it out in the wild, is that what people call the view model tends to be dumping ground for stuff that I don't want to put in the view, like including networking and all sorts of other stuff. And that's not a view model. That might be a perfectly legitimate thing to have and to use, but it's not a view model. A view model is a representation of the view that's agnostic, that's separate from the view, from the presentation. It's an abstraction of the presentation. So in his case, it's a selection game and a matching game for toddlers, and we modeled what is something selected or not. true or false. Each element that of two rows that you're comparing. And so we modeled like, is it selected true or false? And do these two elements that were selected, did we determine that they are a match, true or false? And with that, his view, his SwiftUI code was so simple that I thought, maybe it doesn't need tests. That's part of the idea of the humble object, is to make it so humble, so, it's just going to do what it's told, and you can see it's working or it's not. And that's basically it. So that is a different, totally valid approach to doing SwiftUI. The reason I wanted to try this approach for this mastermind game was because I am seeing a pushback in the SwiftUI community against view models. People are complaining, saying, I don't want to add another layer when basically SwiftUI can do it all for me. And I think people call it, instead of MVVM, they just call it MV, which, again, I don't think that's quite correct either, because it's not the model. Everything is layers in the end. And it's a question of how many do you want? And so all that to say, I don't know which is easier, which is better, which is stronger. And I wanted to take this approach to really learn how to do a SwiftUI of a view-centric thing. The benefit of having view-centric tests is they do end up being more like acceptance tests. However, you can write your view model tests that way too. Especially with approval tests. This is something that I plan to do in my follow-up coaching with him, is to say, there is a technique in approval tests. So if you go to approvaltest.swift and go to approvaltest.com, yeah, it's really about how do you need observation, and people resisting it and saying you don't need it. I see nothing wrong with view models, but some people don't like them. Go to approval tests, click the Swift version. This is where I work. That is very true. If you have a humble view, it should be pretty easy to port. And let me see if there's an example in here. If I can remember where it is. Demo. I think it's in this one. No? Sequence. Here we go. Approval tests. So this is a sequence. In approval tests, you have an external source of this is what is approved. And you generate this is the reference, the golden master, and you generate through your tests another version saying, I've made some changes. Do they match? The beauty of one of the styles of verification in approval tests, one of them is called testing a sequence or a timeline or what do you call it in movies? They make a like a map of what a movie is going to look like. Well, this is that. This is the game of life. Here's the initial layout of the board, and in the next frame, the shapes twist, and in the next frame, it goes back. If you haven't done the game of life, that is a excellent thing to play with. So let me try to find the actual example of this. This is in test sequence. Oh, wait. It is in the test code. John. Is it in here? Yeah, here. We're verifying a sequence. So we set game of life when we set it up with the specific coordinates of where to start, and we say verify a sequence with 2 frames. Go. And it runs through this, and it says advance, advance, and each time it's converting this into the result that you see here. So why am I sharing this? This is a kind of testing that you can do to have more expressive acceptance tests, acceptance level testing, instead of having really, really small tests for everything. That is immediately apparent around whether something works or not. Hey, bro, I am old as fuck. Anyway, this is all a digression into kind of the question, the big question of how do we test views? And the thing with this is there is no UI for this. This is all testing a model. So you can do acceptance level testing without needing a UI. That's what I wanted to say. There is great power in acceptance level tests. This is a fascinating discussion. I don't have a clear answer. I don't think there is an answer. I think that it is, there are pros and cons, and I want to try it the other way. Like whenever we come to a point where I'm finished, finished enough with this mastermind game, I want to try the other way. Sort of a more inside out, not inside out, more UI agnostic approach. So from view model or from view. So that is a great thing. Thanks for the question. Hope you folks don't mind this kind of digression, but this is part of why it's fun, what I enjoy. We're not here just to make progress on things. All right, let's go back and say hooray. Mark this as green. Oh, not lime, dark green. What's this? Can the feedback peg view avoid having an array and an index? I don't remember. Let's take a look at feedback peg view. Pro tip, I don't remember who I learned this from, but you don't have to type feedback peg view. you can just do it like that. Sometimes, depending on the size of your code, like this doesn't work as well in the monster code base at work, but sometimes it does. What are we doing? Oh, this is it. The feedback peg view has an array and an integer, and there was stuff about this. Each peg view has all the pegs and an index. Can't the feedback peg view simply have a feedback peg? That was the thing. Hey, so the question from, I'm not sure how to pronounce your handle there, Xmoxol. How many years of experience do I have? A lot. Kind of a long story there. I mean, I started coding for fun in junior high, but went to school. When I graduated, I didn't enter the software industry. I got programming jobs. So it's not quite the same as working like for a big company with all the stuff. That didn't happen until I moved to Silicon Valley, which has been a while now. $30 years. Right on. Oh man. Fellow old soul there. So Xmoxel, nothing wrong with asking curiosity questions, and I welcome them. And feel free, if this is an open place, and if you ask stuff where it's like, I don't want to get into that right now, I'll tell you. I am, and for you, ya young folks, ya younguns, who may not have heard of extreme programming, find out about extreme programming. Man, it is so good. It is so different. Let's do this. Let's do this one. This makes sense. Marking it as in progress. There you go. Kent is definitely, that's Kent right there in the little emoji. What gonna be for a new web dev? Or I'm not sure what your question is. Oh, Tidy First is a great book. Did I share? I have it now. Going through it. Yeah. Can you restate your question, Xmox? You're asking for advice on whether you want to be, or you're a programmer with no experience. Not sure what you're asking about web dev. But maybe you're asking for general advice on how to get started. I am currently reading another book. Let's see if I can find it. Peak. Peak is about experts, people who are like really at the expert level of whatever they do. And a lot of the focus of this book is on things where you can measure the expertise, because it's a scientific, it's not a scientific book. It's a very lay book. So you don't have to be a behavioral or any sort of scientist to get it, but the focus of the book is on people where they can actually measure whether somebody is an expert or not. And they're focusing primarily on, there's been talk about athletes, but also musicians, and how it extends, how this advice, thank you, my advice for new developers, how this extends to other things where it's not as easy to measure. Like you can't, there's no measurement for how good of a programmer are you. There's nothing quite like that. But the book goes on to describe how to apply the same techniques that experts use to become experts. And the main thing is practice with feedback from an expert. Practice, and get feedback from an expert. Who are these experts? Look for stuff from, well, what do I mean by practice? Look for a code katas. Oh, yeah, learn to use Git. That is solid advice. A kata is an exercise. It's a little programming exercise. And some are smaller, some are bigger, but there's a whole load of exercises you can do. Now, the problem is that if you're doing an exercise, you may think you did it well, but it's good to get feedback from somebody about, like to watch somebody else do the same exercise. So if you look up, you can find videos of programmers who go through and do an exercise and do it well. How will you know whether the person is an expert or not who's made this video? Whatever you find on YouTube, you don't. But whoever you watch, you'll learn something different from, because they're different from you. So that would be my advice, would be start doing daily exercises, daily coding exercises, and then go find a video of somebody doing the same exercise and watch what they do. Some will be okay, some will be so-so, some will be awesome. But you should be able to learn from watching somebody else do the same exercise. And you'll learn so much. So good luck. The other thing about being an expert, though, just to keep in mind, is that experts, fantastic recommendation from Eric. That is probably the best channel you will find right now. If you only watch one channel, forget mine. Go to Dave. It's Dave Farley. It's Kent Beck. It's a bunch of other real people who are experts. Check that out. That is a stellar piece of advice. One warning is that experts don't become experts overnight. It takes 10 years of solid practice, whether you're a chess master or an artist or a musician or an athlete. It's 10 years. Dedicate yourself, and do exercises and get feedback, and especially if you can, pair program. Pair and mob, work code with other people when you get the chance, who are experts. Check out Modern Software Engineering So thank you for throwing in that question. Okay, let's get back to, let me note that. Advice for so what I mean by exercises is look up code katas. If you happen to wander in here, but I don't assume that you're an iOS programmer. You said you're a web programmer, but bear with me. If I look up code kata on my site, I've got some Swift specific ones, but the reason I'm coming here is, where is many more? Here we go. Emily. Emily is the boss of code katas. She has more than you can shake a stick at in various languages. Check out her GitHub. There are so many. Where to start? I think she's got advice on where to start. So you might look up Emily Bache code kata recommendations, and you'll find other people doing these exercises. That's what I mean by exercises and practice is these katas. A kata is a word from martial arts of doing a move when you're not in actual combat. You see people in martial arts practice moves, and they do them over and over and over again so that they don't have to think about them anymore. It comes naturally, and they become experts. That would be telling. Let's get back to this and see if we can't make some progress on changing the feedback peg view to take feedback peg instead of, like, it should work. I think what I want to do to try to do this safely is to clone this into a new one, which I'll just call feedback peg view 2, just so it works. And let's get rid of the index and just have a feedback peg, and we're fixing it up. Oh, you're asking Mudshark. I thought you asked me. So Mudshark is older than I expected. And I haven't retired yet, but I am starting to wish. Starting to wish. So let's fix these up. Oh, this is the reason to take an index. What do we do for the identifier? We can pass in the identifier to use. Or we can just pass in the index. So ended up bringing it back, but that is simpler. Now this will compile, right? It's no longer screaming at us. So what if I use feedback peg view 2, providing it with I don't know if I like this. But I think it'll pass. This it creates some duplication out at this level of passing in the index twice. Maybe that's why I did it this way. However, it's like a question of where do you want the duplication, and do you really need a full array for every single thing? So we could pass in, yeah. So we could say, make me the identifier for this one or something like that. Let's go, let me just try to run tests. Now this is one of the things that I find beautiful about having tests on SwiftUI is not, you notice how little I use the preview? I don't need to look at it. I've got tests most of the time. Sometimes we do look at it and it is good. So what is this? This is a test supported procedural refactoring. So it's not low risk. It's got some risk, a little bit. Trying to simplify feedback peg view. So the other thing we could do is pass in the accessibility. Yeah, let's find out. And Mohammed has the good idea of kind of lifting it up. That is a technique when you're dealing with layers of things, is taking a particular piece of functionality and moving it up or pushing it down. And so what if we move it up? So we say, well, what's the feedback? Let's experiment and see what it looks like. So if I can create an accessibility identifier and just pass it in, and we can just do this raw right here. This will be a string. And I'm going to cut that, paste in whatever we get there. That breaks this one. And so now I can say that's peg index 0. There we go. Now this should pass. And it does. This is a move accessibility up. Or just moving the line. Not sure. Oh, you mean set the accessibility identifier not here, but out here. I mean, this comes back to why I wanted to set it, why I ended up passing in the full array and the index, because it did it for me. We do end up with duplication. Oh, and as we end up with more data, we get less code duplication and more data duplication the way we had it before. And sometimes data duplication is a definite issue, especially for a ginormous app where data is flying around. It can also become a problem with, like, say we had not 4 feedback peg views, but say we had a massive scrolling list of stuff that went on forever. You wouldn't want every single piece of that to have the full array. So passing in the peg to use is definitely strong. How do I feel about this? A factory method. Kinetic Legend, I don't remember you. It doesn't say you're a first-time chatter. So thank you for speaking up and welcome back. Yes. That is looking like a nice approach. What would that look like? It would look like that. This is the peg view. I'm not feeling drawn towards a lazy grid yet. I know I keep resisting. Just because we have 4, the count shall be 4. And this is going to make a feedback peg view 2. There. This is looking like something. We're hiding. Yeah. I see what you mean about not putting the accessibility identifier in here, that it will be easier if we don't even, because then we don't need to pass in the peg index. But let's go with this. Having done this, I should be able then to say this is peg view 0, and this should pass. I'm sticking with you doing one at a working on one as we refine it before I change them all. So this is a make factory method for PegView. Now let's move the accessibility identifier out. So we no longer need that. And instead it moves inside of here. We're taking this out, putting it here. This is no longer a feedback peg view that we're passing back. It's just probably a view. Because accessibility identifier is the end of the line. It is just a modified content. Okay, what do we do here? What is this? Is it some view? Sure looks like it. So now the accessibility identifier is defined entirely in here. Index is used here, here, and here. Index is no longer used out here, just the peg. This should pass. Yep. Some view makes me think of some pig. All right, so this is move accessibility identifier up to the factory. And now should be able to do this boldly. Oh, I'm liking this. Which means this is now dead code. Dead code is a low risk, so single dot. And that leaves us with the renaming. Which is now can be automated. Low risk. Man, this cleaned it up immensely. How cool is that? What did we do? What just happened? We separated the construction, having a factory method. Folks, if I know the design patterns book is big and old and dated, read it anyway. By separating construction from like how to construct from the intention that simplifies this, that simplified the actual type of the peg view itself. Win, 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 win. What just happened? that, and I'm going to say move up or down the layers of abstraction. That's one of the directions you can move with refactoring. Yes, indeed. So much cleaner. One place. Man, feels good. Feels good. All right, it is time. Unless there's anything else you observed, this is our list of stuff from Continuous Retro. There is, so Eric, there is a mutator for Swift. It's called Muter. Check it out. Mutation testing. Yeah, Striker is nice. And mutation testing tools won't find everything, but they will find some things just by letting it run. So absolutely, here, whoop. It can be slow, so you can just, I would set it up and try it, and if it fails, fix it until it starts running, and then just walk away and let it do its thing. Yep, there it is. Muter. And Sean probably isn't able to update this anymore, but it looks like, because he works at Apple, but it looks like it is still active. Indeed. There have been, the torch was passed, and it is still a live project, which means we can continue to contribute to it and suggest, here's a mutation that you can make to the code. Alrighty, folks. Thank you so much for joining. This was great and really one of the highlights of my week. Unfortunately, I'm going to be off for the next 2 weeks. Not unfortunate. Unfortunate for you. I will be busy taking care of grandson, and so that'll be a challenge of a different kind, non-technical. I'll see you again on May 18th. For folks who are watching after the fact, gosh, thanks for watching. Do give it a like, a subscribe, whatever, a thumbs up, tweak the system. It's also fun if you leave a comment about anything you liked or learned or any questions you have. Do that as well. I like hearing from you. And follow Mohammed's example. If you can think of like a code thing that you want to suggest, open up a pull request. All right. Thank you so much. Take care. I'll see you 2 weeks off, so in 3 weeks. May 18th. Stay tuned. I'll be back here in my setup by that point. All right. Take care. Be good. Fight fascism. Remember that finding joy is a form of resistance. Peace out.